Richard Louis Proenneke, May 4, 1916 to April 20, 2003, was an American self-educated naturalist, conservationist, writer, and wildlife photographer who, from the age of about 51, lived alone for nearly 30 years, 1968–1998, in the mountains of Alaska in a log cabin that he constructed by hand near the shore of Twin Lakes. Proenneke hunted, fished, raised and gathered much of his own food, and also had supplies flown in occasionally. He documented his activities in journals and on film, and also recorded valuable meteorological and natural data. The journals and film were later used by others to write books and produce documentaries about his time in the wilderness. Proenneke bequeathed his cabin to the National Park Service upon his death, and it was included in the National Register of Historic Places 4 years later. The cabin is a popular attraction of Lake Clark National Park. Proenneke enlisted in the United States Navy the day after the attack on Pearl Harbor and served as a carpenter. He spent almost 2 years at Pearl Harbor and was later stationed in San Francisco waiting for a new ship assignment. After hiking on a mountain near San Francisco, he contracted rheumatic fever and was hospitalized at Norco Naval Hospital for 6 months. During his convalescence, the war ended and he was given a medical discharge from the Navy in 1945. According to one of his biographers and friend, Sam Keith, the illness was very revealing for Proenneke, who decided to devote the rest of his life to the strength and health of his body. Following his discharge from the Navy, Proenneke went to school to become a diesel mechanic. The combination of his high intelligence, adaptability, and strong work ethic helped him become a skilled technician. Though adept at his trade, Proenneke eventually yielded to his love of nature and moved to Oregon to work at a sheep ranch. He moved to Shuyak Island, Alaska, in 1950. For several years, he worked as a heavy equipment operator and repairman on the Naval Air Station at Kodiak. Proenneke spent the next several years working throughout Alaska as both a salmon fisherman and diesel technician. He worked for the Fish and Wildlife Service at King Salmon on the Alaska Peninsula. His skills as a technician were well known and sought after, and he was able to save for retirement. Located at the northwest corner of North America, Alaska is the northernmost and westernmost state in the United States, but also has the most easterly longitude in the United States because the Aleutian Islands extend into the eastern hemisphere. Alaska is the only non-contiguous U.S. state on continental North America. About 500 miles, 800 kilometers, of British Columbia, Canada, separates Alaska from Washington. It is technically part of the continental U.S., but is not usually included in the colloquial use of the term. Alaska is not part of the contiguous U.S., often called the Lower 48. The capital city, Juneau, is situated on the mainland of the North American continent but is not connected by road to the rest of the North American highway system. The state is bordered by Canada's Yukon and British Columbia to the east, making it the only state to only border a Canadian territory. The Gulf of Alaska and the Pacific Ocean to the south and southwest. The Bering Sea, Bering Strait, and Chukchi Sea to the west, and the Arctic Ocean to the north. Alaska's territorial waters touch Russia's territorial waters in the Bering Strait, as the Russian Big Diomede Island and Alaskan Little Diomede Island are only 3 miles (4.8 kilometers) apart. Alaska has a longer coastline than all the other U.S. states combined. Alaska's size compared with the 48 contiguous states. ALBA's equal area conic projection, at 663,268 square miles, 1,717,856 kilometers 2, in total area. Alaska is by far the largest state in the United States. Alaska is more than twice the size of the second largest U.S. state, Texas, and it is larger than the next 3 largest states, Texas, California, and Montana, combined. Alaska is the 7th largest subnational division in the world. If it was an independent nation, would be the 18th largest country in the world. Almost the same size as Iran. With its myriad islands, Alaska has nearly 34,000 miles, 55,000 kilometers, of tidal shoreline. The Aleutian Islands chain extends west from the southern tip of the Alaska Peninsula. Many active volcanoes are found in the Aleutians and in coastal regions. Unimak Island, for example, is home to Mount Shishelden, which is an occasionally smoldering volcano that rises to 10,000 feet, 3,000 meters, above the North Pacific. The chain of volcanoes extends to Mount Spur, west of Anchorage on the mainland. Geologists have identified Alaska as part of Wrangellia, a large region consisting of multiple states and Canadian provinces in the Pacific Northwest, which is actively undergoing continent building. One of the world's largest tides occurs in Turnagain Arm, just south of Anchorage, where tidal differences can be more than 35 feet, 10.7 meters. Alaska has more than 3 million lakes. Marshlands and wetland permafrost cover 188,320 square miles, 487,700 square kilometers, mostly in northern, western and southwest flatlands. Glacier ice covers about 28,957 square miles, 75,000 square kilometers, of Alaska. The Bering Glacier is the largest glacier in North America, covering 2,008 square miles, 5,200 kilometers 2, alone. On May 21, 1968, Proenneke arrived at his new place of retirement at Twin Lakes. Beforehand, he made arrangements to use a cabin on Upper Twin Lake owned by retired Navy Captain Spike Carruthers and his wife Hope of Kodiak, in whose care he had left his camper. This cabin was well situated on the lake and close to the site that Proenneke chose for the construction of his own cabin. Proenneke's cabin is handmade and is notable for its fine craftsmanship as a result of his carpentry and woodworking skills. He also made 8mm films covering its construction. Most of the structure and the furnishings are made from materials in and around the site, from the gravel taken from the lake bed to create the cabin's base, to the trees he selected, cut down, and then hand-cut with interlocking joints to create the walls and roof rafter framing. The fireplace and flue were made from stones he dug from around the site and mortared in place to create the chimney and hearth. He used metal containers for food storage. 1-gallon cans were cut into basin shapes and buried below the frost line. This ensured that fruit and perishables could be stored for prolonged periods in the cool earth yet still be accessible when the winter months froze the ground above them. Proenneke's friend, bush pilot and missionary Leon Reed, Babe, Alsworth, returned periodically by seaplane or skiplane to bring mail, food and orders that Proenneke placed through him to Sears. Proenneke remained at Twin Lakes for the next 16 months, after which he briefly went home to visit relatives and secure more supplies. He returned to Twin Lakes the following spring and remained there for most of the next 30 years, traveling to the contiguous United States only occasionally to visit his family. He made a film record of his solitary life, which was later re-edited and made into the documentary Alone in the Wilderness. In 2011 a sequel was produced after enough footage for at least 2 more programs was discovered. Alone in the Wilderness, Part 2 premiered on December 2, 2011. Proenneke's cabin was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 2007. The site is a popular attraction for many who want to personally experience parts of Proenneke's life and values. Alaska is the largest U.S. state by area, comprising more total area than the next 3 largest states of Texas, California and Montana combined, and is the 7th largest subnational division in the world. It is the 3rd least populous and most sparsely populated U.S. state, but is, with a population of 736,081 as of 2020. The continent's most populous territory located mostly north of the 60th parallel, with more than quadruple the combined populations of northern Canada and Greenland. The state capital of Juneau is the 2nd largest city in the United States by area. The former capital of Alaska, Sitka, is the largest U.S. city by area. The state's most populous city is Anchorage. Approximately half of Alaska's residents live within the Anchorage metropolitan area. Indigenous people have lived in Alaska for thousands of years, and it is widely believed that the region served as the entry point for the initial settlement of North America by way of the Bering Land Bridge. The Russian Empire was the first to actively colonize the area beginning in the 18th century, eventually establishing Russian America, which spanned most of the current state, and promoted and maintained a native Alaskan Creole population. The expense and logistical difficulty of maintaining this distant possession prompted its sale to the U.S. in 1867 for $7.2 million United States dollars, equivalent to $151 million in 2022. The area went through several administrative changes before becoming organized as a territory on May 11, 1912. It was admitted as the 49th state of the U.S. on January 3, 1959. Abundant natural resources have enabled Alaska, with one of the smallest state economies, to have one of the highest per capita incomes. With commercial fishing, and the extraction of natural gas and oil, dominating Alaska's economy. U.S. Armed Forces bases and tourism also contribute to the economy. More than half the state is federally owned land containing national forests, national parks, and wildlife refuges. It is among the most irreligious states. One of the first to legalize recreational marijuana, and is known for its libertarian-leaning political culture, generally supporting the Republican Party in national elections. The indigenous population of Alaska is proportionally the second highest of any U.S. state, at over 15%, after only Hawaii. Various indigenous languages are spoken, and Alaskan natives are influential in local and state politics.